In a world where the war in Ukraine still rages with no end in sight, the meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska drew massive attention. Global audiences expected a dramatic breakthrough, or at least a sign of compromise. But what unfolded was a display of symbolism and spectacle rather than concrete solutions. Analysts described it as a moment heavy with optics, but light on results, echoing what the New York Times called a diplomatic gamble that ended in ambiguity. Putin's arrival in Alaska was striking in itself. He walked down the steps of his plane to a red carpet welcome, something unimaginable just a year ago when Russia faced deep isolation from most of the West. Trump stood waiting, clapping warmly as they shook hands and smiled for cameras. The image was powerful. A leader shunned by NATO capitals since the 2022 invasion of Ukraine was now being greeted on American soil, and not just as a visitor, but as a partner being honored. Many observers believe this moment alone was a diplomatic win for Moscow, one that Russian state media quickly amplified. The significance of this reception cannot be overstated. Putin, who had been traveling only to countries such as North Korea, Belarus, and Iran in recent months, suddenly found himself face-to-face with the leader of the world's most powerful nation. Commentators on CNN noted that the optics were more favorable to Putin than anything the Kremlin could have orchestrated, suggesting that the imagery of Trump's hospitality overshadowed the substance of the talks. In a surprising twist, Putin accepted Trump's personal offer to ride in his armored presidential limousine, abandoning his own Russian state vehicle. Cameras captured him laughing in the back seat, a moment seen as both unscripted and symbolic. For a man often portrayed as stern and calculated, Putin appeared relaxed and even jovial, leaving analysts debating whether this lighthearted gesture masked a more serious strategic gain for Russia. Yet, the atmosphere quickly changed once the summit began. Unlike in Moscow, where Putin controls every press appearance, Alaska offered him no such shield. As he walked past reporters, a journalist shouted a piercing question: "Will you stop killing civilians?" Though Putin showed little reaction, such direct confrontation was rare for him. Reporters also asked whether he would consider sitting down with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky in a trilateral summit. His only response was a faint smile, which raised more questions than it answered. The talks, scheduled to last several hours, ended earlier than expected. Instead of a joint press conference, both leaders gave brief statements. Putin went first, describing the discussions as constructive and respectful, while recalling Alaska's history as a former Russian territory. It was several minutes before he even mentioned Ukraine. When he finally did, he insisted that only by addressing the root causes of the war could peace be achieved. Experts immediately noted that these root causes remain Russia's long-standing demands, including Ukraine's neutrality, demilitarization, and recognition of Russia's annexation of occupied territories. For Ukraine, such conditions are non-negotiable. The BBC highlighted that Kyiv and its allies see these demands as a blueprint for surrender, a position Ukraine cannot accept after years of brutal fighting. Despite this, Putin signaled no willingness to adjust his stance, reminding the world that Moscow remains fixed on its maximalist goals. Trump's statement, in contrast, was unexpectedly short and vague. Known for his long and often improvised speeches, he simply said that the meeting had been extremely productive and that great progress was made, but he gave no details. He acknowledged the staggering human cost of the war, saying 5, 6, 7,000 people a week were being killed, yet he did not outline any concrete steps or agreements. Notably, Trump never once mentioned a ceasefire or pressed Putin on his military actions. This omission was significant. Before the summit, Trump had warned of severe consequences if Russia refused to consider peace, but those words were absent in Alaska. Analysts at Reuters pointed out that the lack of pressure was a clear relief from Moscow.